If you want to join my fantasy league for 2023, then enter the code on screen on the AFL Fantasy website or app. There will be prizes announced in due course. Last year, I did AFL Fantasy for the first time, and although I wasn't great at times, I did enjoy it, and it's something that I do again to very much so every year like I was last year. And that's why today, as soon as AFL Fantasy opened, I was up and about straight onto the website to build my team, and after quite a bit of adjusting, I've got my team for the time being. Now, considering it's only January, we've still got 2 months until the footy season kicks off. I probably will be checking into the website, adjusting my team every day, just really nitpicking. But this is a team that I'm pretty happy to show off for my January edition of my 2023 AFL Fantasy team. If you would make any changes to this fantasy team, let me know down in the comments, and have you done AFL Fantasy before? Let's start off with my defender, my D1. He's my first choice defender, and he will be my vice captain, starting at 977k. He's an absolute premium price pick. It is the one, the only, from Carlton, Sam Doherty. The amount of intercept marks and the way this man conducts the backline is incredible. I'm almost all but certain to have Doherty as my vice captain for round one, considering he plays first, and he got 95 against Richmond in round one last year, so he'll do a job. We also got to remember that round one game last year was his first game coming off a battle with cancer. And for the rest of the year, he was getting 120s, 130s every single week. He averaged 110.3 last year, which is the second highest average he's ever had, compared back to 2017. Doherty should be a lock in a lot of people's teams, and he certainly is in mine. D2, I've gone with someone I didn't have for all of last year, who nevertheless had a very good year. At 893k, I've gone with Adelaide's Jordan Dawson. Dawson moved from the Swans to the Crows at the beginning of last year, and at the Swans in 2017, he averaged 48, 2018 67, 2019 82, 2020 66, 2021 was 88, in 2022, he found his groove, averaging 101. He was getting hundreds every week. Rarely a bad game from Jordan Dawson, one of the more consistent defender performances. And I thought for 893k, that's a decent price for someone of that quality. Now, in this side, there is a lack of Fremantle, and I wanted to make sure I got my Freo fix in this side. And this is a man that is not only primed for a breakout All-Australian year, but it's a man that could very well be in the top 3 defenders by the end of the year, and that is why he is my D3. He started last year at only 543k. He starts this year at 776k. It's Hayden Young, an intercept marking machine. Fremantl's back six was absolutely locked down to the core last year, and Hayden Young was a core part of that. He was arguably the best player in our back six last year. The amount of intercept marks he takes, the amount of kicks he gets off halfback is ridiculous. When it comes to defense, he's the dream fantasy player, and he will only keep on building and building until he starts getting illustrious scores every year. In 2021, he only played 8 games and averaged 69, as opposed to 2022, he played 20 games and averaged 88. He had a decently slow start to the year, got a ton in round 2, but his end to the year after the bye was absurd. This included a 132 in Fremantle's draw with Richmond last year. My D4 is someone I started with last year. I had to trade him out after round 1 after getting a score of 3 and him getting injured all the way up until round 12. It's Melbourne's Christian Salem. He's priced at only 653k this year. So for a mid to upper price defender of the quality of Christian Salem on his best, he could do some serious damage. Obviously, he got the 3 in round 1 because he got injured so early in the game, which heavily deducted his average from last year, but he did end up averaging 73.8. Now, Salem at a decently low price has put together some really good years on top of each other before that injury last year. He averaged 92.9 after 21 games last year, in 2021, sorry. So for this price, it's a really good pick. It's just whether Salem can find that form again. Salem did pull off some 104, some 99s, another 104 and 83 last year, which are the scores you want from someone of this price, and even more. But then he did come out with some 57s and some 44s, which just really leaves you shaking whether this will be a good pick. I think I will stick with him into the season, and I just hope he hits the ground running. either doesn't get injured straight away, because he will be a really important part of Melbourne's half-back line. Talking of important parts of half-back lines, and talking from someone who played for Melbourne, he's now at West Coast. He's only at 379k. His name is Jaden Hunt. Now, my D5 is Jaden Hunt. My D6 is also a West Coast player, and there's a very good reason for that. West Coast will be racking the ball up a lot on half-back, and Jaden Hunt will be the man that will be in that Eagles best 22, racking up the ball a lot. He is a bargain pick. Now, Jaden Hunt, his only season where he put together a season where he played every single game for Melbourne was in 2017, where he averaged 72.5. That was a cracking price he was at that year. In 2022, he did play 18 games and really couldn't find any scores of note for Melbourne. He got a 77 in the final round of the regular season. But you just really hope with the ball coming down to West Coast back six a little bit more, with him being able to rack up the ball more than a lot of West Coast defenders, him being a real experienced part of that half-back line. I think Jaden Hunt, even if he's just putting up 65s to 70s each week, even less than that for 379k, I feel like he'll get you a pretty decent score. And now I've got a basement price at 200k, another West Coast player. His name is Campbell Chesser. I believe he went top 10 in the 2021 draft, and he got injured in a practice match with Freo. He missed the entire season and was placed on the club's inactive list. Now he's gone all the way back down to basement price at 200k. He plays off half-back, he runs off half-back, he gets a lot of the pill, and being a top 10 pick, I have no doubts the West Coast are going to be looking to chuck him in there straight away. He probably is my number one bargain pick in my fantasy team. I feel like he's just almost a must-have for that price. Now let's move into the midfield, starting off with my captain for round one. From the Freo Dockers, I've gone with Andy Brayshaw. I mean, Andy Brayshaw is pretty self-explanatory why you have him in your team. Not only there's a reason he's my captain for round one as well. He had 144 and 181 against St Kilda last year. I'll reiterate that. He had 181 and 144 against St Kilda last year. We played St Kilda round one. He's a locking captain. I mean, he averaged 112.4 in 2022. I mean, it was just absolutely absurd. He had an incredible season from start to finish, pulling out 120, 130, 140, even a 180 whenever he wanted to. He started last year at 875. He started this year at 995. In my original sketch of this team, I had Rory Laird, but Laird is going at 1.07 mil. And he is easily the most expensive player in the game. Brayshaw's the second most expensive, but God almighty, I couldn't actually afford that. I think Laird may end up sneaking in my team at some point because of the scores he could put up like he did last year, but I felt like it was a little bit too expensive for my liking, so I went with Brayshaw. Of course, the big guns don't stop there. Priced at 972k from the Gold Coast Suns, it's Touk Miller. This man's work rate is absolutely unbelievable. He's primed after almost winning the Brownlow last year for potentially another Brownlow year, potentially winning it this year. He averaged 109.8 in 2022. He did average 122 in 2021, so it was pretty much a 15-point decrease. But doesn't really matter. He'll get back up to the 120s. He is primed for a repeat year. That average was heavily affected by a little bit of a poor start to the year. He started with 100 and 147, but it moved into the 68 and 83 categories. That's where it really affected his average. He went on a run from round 15 to round 23 of 127, 132, 106, 106, 120, 122, 88, 133, 102. He was on a madness. He got two 140s last year, including a 147 and a 140. Touk Miller, lock him in your side. Now, I couldn't go for three midfielders all over 900k because that would be ridiculous. I know, remember, there's a salary cap. So I've gone with the traditional fantasy pig. His name's Tom Mitchell. I mean, Tom Mitchell won a Brownlow medal off being an AFL Fantasy Lord. 2018, he averaged 129. That's unheard of. In his debut season, he averaged 90. Last year, he was at 96.3, which is Lord impressive considering Sam Mitchell's change of roles from him every single game. Craig McRae, who'll stick him straight in the guts. He won't have a compromised role every game. He'll be straight in the guts, winning the ball, tackling players. He will be absolutely unstoppable. And for only 853k, I feel like you have to go with Tom Mitchell. My M4 is someone I also started with last year. He was a rookie last year in his first year, started at 278k. I traded him out at his injury in round 8. He came back in round 17 and put up a couple tons, 80s and 90s. He's a man that's priced at 634k that could make a real impact in the Hawthorn guts, now that Tom Mitchell and Jago O'Meara are gone, I've gone with Josh Ward. At 19 years of age, to be priced at 634k, to be the main man in that Hawks engine room. I think Ward pretty quickly will prove himself to the competition as one of the comp's best. He will be a star for Hawthorn next year alongside Jai Newcomb, Carl Amon in that midfield. I think Hawthorn are going to have an absolutely crap year, but I think Josh Ward will be a shining light. Going a little bit rogue with my M5 shout. I've gone from Geelong Max Holmes. Now, I was looking at players around this price for my midfield. 565k is what I've ended up settling with, and Max Holmes fits the resume perfectly for what I'd like. He's only 20 years of age, which means he's got a ton of room to develop. He plays consistent football for Geelong and will be in there starting in 22. And to end the season, from round 17 to 23, he went with an 80, a 71, a 72, a 66, a 98, a 90, and an 81. For 565k, that is a miniature bargain. I don't really need to talk about this guy too much. I don't actually need to talk about the next three guys too much because they're all rookies. This man is the most picked player in AFL Fantasy at M6, 298k, Will Ashcroft. I mean, come on, he'll be in Brisbane starting 22. He'll win the ball a ton. He's going to be mad. 294k at North Melbourne, George Wardlaw. He's at North Melbourne. He was a top 5 pick. He'll be in that engine room. He'll be winning the ball and scoring points for the Roos. M8, 288k from Hawthorn. It's Cam McKenzie. He'll win the ball, and he's also good mates with well-known figure on the channel, Riser. Now, Riser did disappear into the depths of the dark streets a long time ago, but I will be sliding into his DMs, asking him if he can score a 140. My rucks. I think this will be everyone's dilemma in fantasy this year, as it was last year. For the past few years, Brody Grundy and Max Gawn, set him and leave him. They are the number 1 and 2. Not anymore. Neither of them are. They're on the same team. They cannot be picked. So you have to be creative. Tim English is being picked by a lot of people. I might end up going with Tim English. I haven't here. I've gone with a mid-price ruck and an upper-price ruck. The number 1 choice ruck for a lot of people is who I've got. It's Rowan Marshall at only 808k. I had him for like the last 5 rounds last year. He was an absolute gun, easily the best ruck in the game towards the end of last year. There's just one doubt that shadows over Rowan Marshall, and that is he's got a new coach. And he could be doing what Brett Ragan did, but a lot more last year. Brett Ragan last year decided to bring in Tom Campbell for games out of nowhere, which heavily reduces Rowan Marshall's score having a second ruck. Now, I'm not sure what Ross Lyon will be like in this scenario, but if he wants to play Tom Campbell every single game alongside Rowan Marshall, because Tom Campbell puts in good performances in the VFL, so you never know what Campbell could do to maybe earn an AFL call-up every single week alongside Marshall, then you have to take Rowan Marshall straight out of your side and bring in a Tim English. I mean, you have a look at the ruck options you've got. You've got Max Gawn you can't use. You've got Tim English, who's got the risk of Rory Lobb, although he's probably your best choice at the moment, although a little bit more of the expensive side. You've got Grundy you can't use, he's in the same side as Gawn. And then you've got a few. Mark Blitzarves, not consistent enough. Sean Darcy, he's got Luke Jackson alongside of him, which doesn't work. And then 2 options that could be rogue but could end up with what I go with as my R1. It's Riley O'Brien and Jarrod Witts. O'Brien is so inconsistent, but every now and then puts in a 160. So you don't know what you're going to get from O'Brien. With Jarrod Witts, he was my first ruck choice that I started with last year. He was coming back from an injury, limited preseason, and he put in the most consistent performance of all the rucks last year. Did not get injured, played every game, so he was probably your best ruck choice from last year. I'm not sure he will be this year though. He could end up sliding in, but I'm going to stick with Rowan Marshall for now. And alongside him will be a very rogue shout. His name will be Scott Lycett. I didn't think I'd ever see Scott Lycett in my AFL Fantasy side. Now, he only played 4 games last year. That included a 42, a 98, a 95, and a 54. That were the first 4 rounds of the season, and then he got injured. He can put in scores, I'll tell you that. In 2021, he played 18 games, so if it wasn't for his injury, he will be playing this year. 18 games, he got an 85.6 average. 2020 was a COVID year, so short and quarters, less scores. 2019, 18 games, 83.4. 2018, 22 games, 77. For only 622k, Scott Lycett is a real good pick for someone that will be going in that best 22, and he will be able to score hopefully on a consistent basis. The one thing about Lycett is injury. Let's move into my forward line. This was my first player I selected on my team. I've never been so quick to put someone in my team. 963k, Mid forward, from the Bulldogs to the Lions, it's Josh Dunkley. In the engine room with Lachie Neale, he's going to win a stupid amount of the ball, a stupid amount of clearances. I don't think he'll be having a different role like he did at the Bulldogs. He'll just be in the engine room full time. Might move into the forward line if he needs to. It doesn't matter. Dunkley will score. Dunkley is my number 1 pick for this year. I feel like he's just the best player in the game this year. My F2, I've gone with Greater Western Sydney's Stephen Coniglio, who had a strange year last year. A good, although strange year. Now, Coniglio started the year with an 87, 98, and 114. He then plummeted to a 61, 98, 79, 105, 65 and 49. There were big doubts about Coniglio. I got him in about back in round 15, and then from round 13 onwards, he showed why he is still a fantasy relevant player to the max. He only dropped below 100 3 times in the last 10 games of the season, including a 130, a 129, and a 121. Also, at only 871k, he's a decent price for pretty much a locked-in F2 for a lot of players. For pretty much a locked-in F2 for a lot of teams. In F3, I pretty much got the most generic first 3 forwards. I've gone with Port Adelaide's Connor Rozee at 780k, very popular, although I have my doubts. Rozee was very good last year, but he pissed you off at times. I was the lucky one that did not own Connor Rozee. A lot of people had him to start last year. He went into round 1 and got 21, followed that up with a 48, a 54, and a 55. He better not start the season like that. He then recovered his season. He ended up averaging 88.1, playing every game for the year. He ended the year with a 125, a 108, a 100, a 115, a 64, a 115, and a 144. He has the mindset to have consistent big scores, but can just chuck in a stinker out of nowhere. I'm so iffy about Connor Rozee. I hope it works out this year now that I've got him. Now my first bargain pick of the forward line. He plays at North Melbourne, although he is a mid forward, which means he will be playing in the midfield. His name, from the Freo Dockers to the North Melbourne Kangaroos, it's Darcy Tucker. Now Tucker is a really interesting one. I think he's a really good selection for his price. Only played 14 games with the Dockers last year. A lot of those were Medi sub games as well. He started the year with 2 72s, which then got him dropped in round 3. He got a 74 in round 7. He got a 69 in round 21 in the few games he did play. But then let's take a look back at 2019. This was the only season at Fremantle where he played every single game. He played 22 games and averaged 72.7 for 457k from one of the mainstays in that North Melbourne engine room. Now that Jason Horne-Francis is gone, he wasn't able to get the continuity in the Freo side in his most consistent position, which is in the midfield. But now that Tucker is at North, he'll be able to strive, and I feel like he is a massive overlooked pick in this forward line. I think Darcy Tucker is all but certain to be my side for round 1. Now, my F5, I'm uncertain whether I can get anyone better for this price. I probably can. I'll probably change it for the start of the season. At 300k though, I've got Greater Western Sydney's Aaron Cadman, the number 1 pick. He's a key forward, which worries me, but he can get points for a 300k rookie, like surely. If you can find anyone better for 300k at that price, let me know down in the comments. And then my F6, like a lot of people's teams, I believe he will debut round 1. For the Saints, 282k, Mateus Filippo in the midfield for St Kilda. I hope he has a good game. I hope he gets smashed by 50 by Freo in the first round, don't get me wrong. But nah, he'll be playing for St Kilda all year, I hope. And yeah, I feel like he's a real good pick, one of the highest selected players in fantasy for this year. I still do have a little bit of work to do on this team, but I'm pretty sound with it for now. Let me know down in the comments what you would change about that, and let me know a bit of advice if you are a more experienced fantasy player than me, because I'm pretty happy with that at the moment. If you are new, I would love it if you could click that subscribe button. The growth we're experiencing lately has been amazing, and I would love that to continue leading up to the 2023 season and throughout. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Cheers.